Hello, this is Robert Faust with Faust Bioagricultural Services, and my paper is on the effects of humic substances on cannabinoid distribution and content in hemp production. The reason behind my paper was that many hemp growers who were growing hemp for CBD are held to a standard of a minimum very low level of THC. And if they exceeded this level, their crop could be destroyed. And that would be a very expensive proposition. And I know growers that happened to. And I read a paper from Israel on a lab scale, which did show the effects of humic substances on cannabinoid distribution, but it wasn't a large scale field test. So I decided to do a large-scale field test on a commercial hemp operation near Albany, Oregon, and here's a picture of it. And it was quite a large field, 30 acres, consisting of up to 12 varieties of locally produced hemp seed that was effeminized auto-flowering type seeds of various different strains that were developed in Oregon. So it was all done organically. And basically, the whole idea here was to do a field trial to verify the works that was done in Israel. And I mentioned in the abstract here that did show some effect. Except in that particular trial, they didn't really specify what kind of humic substances or what concentration it was. So it's difficult to get any real use on a commercial basis from this, but it definitely gave me a basis for moving ahead with a large-scale field trial with BioAg's humic substances, which are of known and guaranteed analysis, so we know what the concentration strength is, and we know what the source is, and so then we could get out there in a large-scale field and see how it works under field conditions. And here's the field from above, 12 varieties planted. It was perfectly executed with organic and really no weeds. It was really well done, and the crop really did good. So we sampled, we did treatments in different rows in a randomized fashion. And the problem was with 12 different varieties. So we couldn't do all 12 varieties. So we did several varieties that were the most popular varieties and see what happened there. So we went through there with field equipment and backpack sprayers to make sure we had accurate application rates and doing the different treatments. And the different treatments include humic acid, fulvic acid, combination of the both. And we carefully apply the material to have good coverage on the plants at regular intervals. And as you can see, the research that was done before, which was published in Hort Science, paper demonstrated a decreased cannabinoid content from applied claim 12% humic acid. And we don't know the source of the humic acid or how much it really had based on the new standards, as the products that we're using in Oregon here are registered with the Department of Agriculture. They're certified as organic inputs, and the quality or the content of humic substances is guaranteed and registered with the state of Oregon by the new standards, which were developed by the Humic Product Trade Association, adapted by AFCO, and based on a hydrophobic fulvic acid content and the HPTA test method for humic and fulvic acid. So at least we have a level playing field and to know what we're dealing with. So we had control groups. We had the varieties we chose were Lifter and Suver Haze from Oregon CBD Company. And we would add different treatments. We had Fulvic Short. That's where we applied it from the first week of planting and then every 7 days until flowering and then discontinued it. Then we had Humic Long, where we used 1 gram per gallon of full Humix, which is a soluble humic acid powder made by BioA. And then we applied that the same way, either long or short. Either we discontinued at flowering or we continued it all the way through. And then the data sets, plants were sorted, average height was 5 plants were picked around the median height and harvested as a whole plant. And then they were taken back to the warehouse, they were dried and trimmed, and then samples of the flowers are collected, and then we used the Gemacert THC CBD analyzer, which is a meter with an accuracy of plus or minus 0.01 unit of CBD and THC. We'll give a reading for total THC and THCA delta 9. Detection was 0.02%. So the results of the testing are shown here in the chart, results and discussion. Suver Haze was the most responsive. There were actually 12 cultivars, but the Suver Haze was used along with Lifter. And that's a popular local variety named after a location nearby called Suver. Plant height and width are sensitive to the type of Fulvic Humic applied and the duration of Fulvic applied. The Lifter, Fulvic Long, and that would be going the whole season. And Humic Long, either Fulvic Long or Humic Long, provided the best biomass for total weight of biomass or yield. The Suver Haze, Fulvic Short, and Humic Long will provide the best biomass. So there's a difference there. Fulvic Short, Humic Long will provide the best biomass. On Suver, Lifter, Fulvic Long, and Humic Long will provide the best biomass. So we're seeing a lot of difference between varieties, between strains that probably people haven't considered. But the plant height was affected over the control. Fulvic Short actually had slightly shorter plant. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Fulvic Long had about the same on Lifter. On Suver Haze, we had considerably better results. And the CBD levels were reduced with the, well, they were actually higher. The Fulvic levels were basically higher in Lifter with either the Fulvic Long or the Humic Short. Or the Humic Long, whereas Humic Long and Suver Haze didn't make much difference, actually shows a lower level. The Fulvic Long, however, there wasn't much difference, and the Humic Short was pretty much the same in terms of CBD. And then we get into THC levels, you can see the on the Suver Haze, the Fulvic Short had a roughly the same level as the control, slightly higher, but the Fulvic Long had a significantly lower THC level, and the Humic Short had a significantly lower level. So we look at Humic Long and in the Suver Haze, it had a very major increase in THC. The lifter variety, not so much. So we're seeing some differences in these varieties, which makes it quite complicated. As you can see in the chart here of the different varieties that we're looking at, gives you a pretty good idea of what we're talking about. So the THC levels can be reduced with the Fulvic long, but this dependent on variety. So I think that if you're going to grow hemp for CBD, you need to be looking at these varietal differences. The THC levels were really increased and at the Humic long level over control. And in many cases, so here's the test plot, and you can see the difference. Because of the numbers, it wasn't necessarily statistically significant, but some of the numbers were. But basically, in some of these treatments, you're going to look at THC levels. Okay, where, let's see, yeah, Fulvic long would decrease the THC level. So, below the minimum level. So there's definitely indications that the use of Fulvic long, which is all the way to just about to harvest, can reduce THC levels in hemp below the 0.03%. And the reason for that is, as it turns out, is that the fulvic acid long application decreases stress. We know that it decreases drought stress, moisture stress, other stresses. So it definitely reduces stress. And THC, as it turns out, is affected by stress. You get stress in the plant either under dry conditions at the end of the growing season and other effects, nutrient loss and other stresses that the fulvic acid reduces. The effect of stress is abscisic acid is produced by the plant, and you'll see yellowing and drop of the large bottom leaves, and that's from abscisic acid, and that tends to correlate with the THC level. So THC is stress related. So if you want a high THC, you would not use fulvic acid all the way through. You'd use it up to flowering. And that'll give you a higher THC level. If you want a lower THC level, you'd reduce stress all the way through, and you're going to get a lower THC level, and it's going to meet the standards required to be certified for harvest in many states in the U.S. and perhaps other areas to avoid the crop destruction mandated. So in the future, there's a lot to do because of all the cultivars that are available and the seemingly variation in these various cultivars. And once we see that, we used the very successful cultivars, and we made the point that in the field operation with foliar applications, you could either increase or decrease the CBD levels, and THC levels, that is, and that the best approach is to keep it going throughout the growing season.